Good morning, everybody, and it is time for our date morning live on Saturday. Super excited to be here. We missed last week, and I'm just gonna go change our privacy settings so that this can stream public.
I was going to say, last week was much needed. I forgot how much I love the sun because it's been freezing over here.
It's freezing over here, Chris, and how cold is it? Let's look at our temperature. It's 48 degrees, and we're freezing. I got a jacket on. I'm like, I don't own warm enough clothes.
So 5:30 this morning, it was 36 degrees, and I was like, oh my God, we're going to die. All of Southwest Florida is going to freeze. The memes were going insane. The other day, I saw people taking pictures, fake pictures out of their truck windows, and you see like frost and ice, and
Yes.
you see the Yeti. And
Yeah, so what'd we do last weekend? Why weren't we live?
oh, we were in the Virgin Islands.
The Virgin Islands. And thank you to Aaron and Tony for inviting us. And Chris was spontaneous and just said, sure, let's go.
Yeah. But man, it was really nice. I do gotta thank their hospitality because it was beautiful. It was like going into a resort where everything, you're shuttled to from the airport, and it was nice.
Yeah, it was great. And I think that, over the years, I think that we've lost doing that. Just kind of like hosting friends and people. And Aaron had posted a picture on social media that he was headed to the Virgin Islands. And I think Chris said, oh, let me know. We've never been there. Let me know how it is. And all of a sudden we're at the Virgin Islands.
Yeah, no.
So we went as well. And it was fun, and we needed to disconnect. I don't know about you guys, but with the new year and planning and goal setting and like reviewing all the things from your businesses rolling into 2025 and what you want to do, it can get overwhelming. And then you see everybody else planning and goal setting, and you're just like, oh my God.
You can probably still see it in my bags.
Yeah.
But no, it was good because we kicked off, and we talked about it before. We kicked off with 100 hours a week working and cramming and just hustling through a lot of things. And then we didn't really have anything to, have that celebration hurrah. So we said, great, I finally got something locked in last minute. Virgin Islands, fantastic. But it was about a week and a half out. So we're like, okay, let's go ahead and just keep pushing, keep doing the 100 hours until then, and then we can reset.
We did, and I met with my SAS coach. So I have my own coach, and I had all this homework to do. And he didn't expect me to get it done because it was the holidays, it was all this. And I met with him on Thursday, and he's like, oh my God, you've been working a ton. He's like, I can't believe you got it all done. And I did. And it's because, yes,
yeah,
we crammed. It was like finals. We crammed, but we struggled with stopping because, and we talked about this on the last Morning Date Live. We struggled with stopping because we'd established that habit, and then we couldn't stop working.
Yeah.
And so we were in burnout. We were miserable. It didn't really affect our marriage because we knew we were burned out, and we'd set that goal to like, okay, we're going to stop when we leave to go on this vacation.
So the reason why it didn't affect the marriage is because we were burnt out together.
Yeah, we were burnt out together.
Yeah. We intentionally replaced date mornings with work mornings.
With work mornings.
So it was still intentional time. It was still things that we had shared together.
Mm-hmm.
But they were work mornings, meaning that we up at 5:30 in the morning, hustling hard, sitting next to each other as much as we could, because I'm left-handed and I have my mouse. Weren't able to sit that close.
Yeah.
But no, replaced that, hustled through it, tired as hell.
Yeah.
But now coming out of it, I'm still tired, but that's for a different reason.
Yeah. And during that sprint of those 3 weeks, I actually stopped drinking wine. And just because I'm just trying to get to like next level clarity, like next version of myself, and like just next level. And you know, Dan Martell always says, if you want to like get something, you have to give up something else. If you want to get to the next level, you have to give up something else.
Yeah.
And so I'd stopped and, oh my God, I feel like I am on some sort of speed. Cause I'm like super hyper, super full of energy. And Chris is like, you have to do something. You're going to drive everyone crazy. Like you have to slow down. But it was really interesting. And like, what are some things? And if you guys have questions at all, everyone knows this is very open conversation. We just kind of kick it off. But you know, I have my little sticky notes because it's my.
I will say while you're looking at that, one thing that I took out of, by the way, this break, resetting in the Virgin Islands, had some great dinners again with Tony and Aaron, but I'll be honest with you, and Libby's the one that also pushed me into that and leaned in because I will say Aaron is very inquisitive, but it's because he's curious. And so, you know that I've been working through this practice of extreme transparency and being more open about things, and honestly about my family, my past, just how I grew up and the struggles I had and issues. And so, you know, he was curious and he was asking me questions and I was giving a surface level answer. And Libby kept looking at me with this side eye. And I gave another surface level answer after he asked another question because he's curious. And then I think Libby opened up and said, you know, he's not telling you everything. He's not saying it all.
Oh no. Yeah. I'd said, Chris, you're not being open, or what did I say? You're not sharing the whole story.
Yeah. And so
that's what I said. You're not sharing the whole story.
Yeah. So I took a minute, I reset, and I was like, that's right. Like I wasn't sure how deep to go and how much I should open up and I guess divulge or give into telling details. Because sometimes right off the bat, if somebody says, how are you? And you're like, oh my gosh, I just tripped over a branch and my whole day was ruined and da-da-da-da-da. I wasn't sure, you know, if I would give that vibe. But so I started with the surface level and then I dug into it. And, you know, me personally, I like sharing things. I like to share those experiences. But it started to get a little bit emotional for me. Not that it was anybody's fault, but, you know, as he was asking questions, I wanted to share it and I wanted to lean into it. And I noticed that I was also getting a little bit more emotional or a little bit fired up, you know, choking up a little bit as I talk. But it was a good reminder that one, just not to give surface level basic answers. I think is the takeaway is it didn't do me any good. It didn't do me any good for healing by giving these basic, you know, answers to what I was saying. And you know, people who were genuinely interested in who I am, how I'm doing, where I came from, things like that. So that's what I took away from it is just to lean into being more genuine and stop being surface level.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty open. Sometimes it's too much information or maybe people don't want to know it, but there's one thing that you can say about me is that, or there's one thing that you won't be able to say about me is that you can't dig anything up that I haven't already shared publicly. And that's how, for me, like you grow and this doesn't seem exhausting or tiring. Mm-hmm. Again, we do the same thing with our employees through lessons, right? We don't just word vomit all over them. It's through lessons and through struggles, and it creates, you know, alignment, and they're, you know, you understand them and they understand you more. But Chris had said, you know, it's like when someone says, how are you? And we automatically say, okay. Again, I am so fortunate to be put in a room with some of the most amazing people ever. And they had a speaker, and this is his book, and it was really good. He's probably like one of the best speakers that I've ever seen. And I actually don't know how you say the name of the book. Oh, exactly what to say. And I can drop the link in later, but this speaker was so amazing because per your conversation with Aaron, right? When he said, when it's, oh, how are you? And everyone's just like, okay. And we're trained to just respond with a generic answer.
Yeah.
Because that's how, do you really want to know how I am? You think to yourself, so you're just going to reply with like, okay, when maybe you're really not.
Mm-hmm.
And so he talks about in this book is that you can know exactly what to say because most of the stuff that we're answering are the same things over and over and over.
Yeah.
It's not new stuff, but we tend to give surface level answers because we haven't thought about how to respond. So it's about like pre-prepping or thinking about what are those questions that I get all the time and how should they be answered versus just your automatic reaction. Oh, how's your day?
Good.
Great. And then so the other person feels like they have to say, oh, I'm great too, in return. And so it becomes a world of like really surface level relationships and meaningless engagement. When we're just like, oh, Chris, how are you? How are you?
Good, thanks.
Oh, I'm good too. Like, oh, I'm okay. Like, and that's what you get. So this is a really good book. The author, he's a great, I got to see him speak. Phil Jones is the author. It's a very easy book, very easy read. It's little. But if you ever feel that way, like you're looking for more meaningful conversations, how do I get like to know my employee, or how do I get a real answer from them? It's in all how we ask and how we respond, because we're all programmed, our employees, our family, our kids, we're all like programmed for these surface level answers. Yeah, anyways, I ran to get this book because it's a great book. So that's why I wanted to share it.
So, and I want to just recap on that is ended up having a amazing conversation, amazing dinner. Got really deep into, honestly, a lot of personal life issues, what we went through, and shared a lot of stories. Talked about sound baths and other types of therapy. So it was a great conversation.
Yeah, it was great. And I think that once you get past like this, surface level stuff, you can connect with people on another level.
Yeah.
And your relationships are more meaningful and impactful. But it's not easy to communicate that way. It's hard, and we feel judged. We feel like, oh, do they really want to know about my past? Do they care? Oh, they don't care. Like getting those things out of your head.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we have a ton of people on here watching. Tammy, Stephanie, Heather, Faith. It's deflection. It is Faith. April, Amy. Amy says, I'm in the same belief. I want to share my lessons in the hope others can learn from them. And so, Amy, I want to change like the way the world perceives cleaning and how they look at the cleaning industry. And so to do that, for me, my mission is like, it's really big. So I had to learn that if I want to do those things, first I have to come to terms with my own issues, my own struggles, my own negative beliefs, my own trauma. This actually came to me in a Reiki breathing exercise in the room with Dan Martell and a couple other people. I think there was like 8 of us. And by the time we got done, like we were all in tears. And it was that I can't help no one if I cannot talk openly about my past or my trauma or my fears, my failures, not just my successes.
Yeah.
And that was like a hard moment. And that's when, I had that conversation with my older son asking, would he be okay with me sharing our past? Because it's not all sunshines and rainbows. And once you can get to a place of like full transparency and not really caring about how others will take you or perceive you. So I'm looking at my Facebook followers because we have a goal to get to a certain amount of followers so we can make so much impact. And I'm like, I had 87 people unfollow me. I'm like, well, those people didn't like what I had to say or being open or honest. And it was just funny because I'm like, oh, okay, well, they're not ready for that. And so
Yeah.
it's not easy. I wasn't ready for it for the longest time.
Yeah. And in bringing that up too, and just that transparency and what Amy mentioned about wanting to share lessons and hopes. Here's the thing that caught me is share lessons in the hope others can learn from them. Again, I always refer back to the book because it's something that really helped me out in me understanding myself. But The Courage to Be Disliked. There was some ideas and some talks through there about altruism and really kind of like what we, how to live our lives in the right way. And it wasn't ever based on needing something from others or dependency on others, but it was more of this sense of community. And then going through the exercise again with my sister up north in Virginia, when I went up there and I talked to her about my past and really tried to open up and share everything. The one thing that I made sure, and this was through the help of Libby as well, is what I made sure that I didn't do was ask for anything in return or expect any outcome from it.
Or even an answer.
So I didn't have, I guess the words that stuck with me was in the hope of something that is outside of my control. What I ended up doing was just delivering it for my own peace of mind and sharing that output. And whatever came from it was entirely out of my control, and I did not expect anything from it except for me controlling what I was saying, how I was feeling, and how I delivered that message. And that's the same thing that I learned from the book was, again, the whole idea of altruism, which it means doing something without asking or needing anything in return. They give examples of bears who look at like an animal inside of a lake, and they're curious beings, but they just kind of scoop it out. And you think of it as they're not looking for anything in return. Granted, the thing in return was probably curiosity.
Or they wanted to eat it.
But they didn't eat it. But what I'm getting from that is not making sure that things that you are putting out there subconsciously, you're not asking for anything in return. Whether that is validation, whether it's an answer, whether it's confirmation. That's something that I really tried to practice now, is making sure that there's no external anchors to my own decisions on whether I feel good about a situation or not. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, it goes into coaching and teaching, and like when you coach someone, and you guys, we have a ton of people on here watching, Angela, Carla, Laura, Sonia. You may see this in some of the way I respond to things on social media, or if I've coached, helped or talked or anything you've communicated. I ask questions that I don't even want the answer to. I just want you to ask yourself. Mm-hmm. Ask yourself these questions. I do it to Chris all the time, and he'll go to answer me, and I'm like, no, I'm not looking for an answer. I just want you to think of
That's where my brain goes.
Repeat those things to yourself. You don't need to give me an answer or justify anything to me. And going back to this topic, and Amy will post the book in the chat. I had a really tough conversation with my leadership team in one of the companies yesterday. We're restructuring. We've been working on our new structure. And it's going to take us about a quarter for the team to get used to the new meetings, the new meeting cadences, the new way we're measuring their performance. But I'm noticing some things in our team, which, I've grown as a person, maybe some of our team has grown, and some people have not. And this may be you, this may be somebody on your team, this may be your spouse, or this may be someone in your family. And this phrase is going to hit really hard to some people, but I had to say it to someone on my team yesterday and said, I can't help you. I cannot coach you. I cannot mentor you if you're not willing to admit your mistakes. If you're not willing to be honest with yourself, I can't help you. And I think that's a true statement to just even say to yourself, I can't be helped by a coach, by a mentor, by my spouse, by a friend, if I'm not willing to admit my mistakes. And, you know, it was funny because the person just responded with a, okay. It's like, I was looking for something more, but it was just like, okay. And then I know they're not there yet. They're not ready. They're not there yet. The answer alone told me, okay, like I know where they're coming from. Stop pushing.
It's the fixation on external anchors.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the fixation on external anchors, but and you'll see this in some of your teams. So like if you're talking to like a sales rep, your CS, you know, just anybody within your team, is it always them or is it us? Like when something happens, something breaks, you don't hold up your end of the deal, and you're just like, how is it always the external thing and not? And I'm like, statistically, it can't happen. It can't always be them. It's like with hiring. Everyone can't suck. The thing that nobody wants to work can't be true. Do they don't want to work for me? Maybe they don't want to work for me, or maybe we're not as great as we think. And so I started to see this, and you cannot help anybody. You cannot. You can't even help yourself. You cannot be coached or mentored. And if you're paying for coaching or you're paying for mentoring, you're wasting your money until you can like admit to your faults and you know, own the mistakes.
Yeah. So there was something I was trying to remember it, but there was a lot of things that were discussed in that meeting. But one of them was going back to, you know, the idea of the id, the ego, the superego, which in a roundabout way talks about, you know, what's seen and what's not seen with emotion, with action and things like that. And it came down to the idea that everything is our fault. Everything is our fault in life.
So we teach this, Chris teaches this to our team, and I want you to hear his concept. It's pretty interesting, and it is our fault, by the way.
But everything in life is our fault. There's nothing that is outside of our control in whatever it is that we choose to do or not do. And I've talked about this before, and I won't use, because I've overused it, the example of driving in a car and getting rear-ended and blaming somebody else for being a bad driver. No. It was our fault for not forecasting, for not pre-planning, for not limiting or reducing our risk in that situation.
Or maybe I could have left earlier.
Or not even left at all.
Or left at all.
But what I came down to here is, in terms of what's seen and what's not seen, is there is always there's always a point to where things become visible or seen. And so if we're trying to figure out where was that break point, where there was, I guess, I forgot what the term was that I called it. I called it like a deficit in...
I don't remember.
But
I wasn't listening.
There's a break point to where things start to become seen, that it then turns into a reaction, or it turns into an effect. But there's a cause or something before that that is unseen, that we never really looked at. And when we talk about it being our fault and with like management and not really making the right decisions, there's always a way to fix a problem, or to proactively fix a problem, if you find the root cause before it's visible. To go back and trace back that thing, to say, well, what if somebody just, maybe they had a bad experience, or maybe somebody showed up late, and that really started to spin things out of control. It's a butterfly effect. But we're only anchoring to those external anchors when we say that they were just really upset all the time. Was there a cause or something that kicked it off way earlier that we could have prevented? Because again, we are at fault. Is there something that we could have prevented?
And I think maybe fault is we use everything's our fault, but everything's within our control. Like you could use a different word in the same way, because maybe you don't want, some people might get a little disgruntled with saying it's not all my fault, but it is. But if you want a different word, you could say everything is within your control.
But I say that it's our fault because that to me is black and white. There is no subjective feelings. By saying that it's my fault, I'm then able to, again, remove that external anchor and put everything in my control, meaning that whatever I decide to do going forward, I've now solidified that this is my fault, meaning that I have full control over it. If I declare that it's my fault, then I declare that I have control over what just happened. Instead of saying that it's somebody else's fault and I have no control whatsoever, and that's even scarier.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I had a really tough conversation with my leadership team. I was pushing them on purpose. I was putting them under pressure because pressure creates diamonds, but for the wrong people, it can break them, right? And so I'm trying to put pressure on them to see, can they do this job? Can they do a good job at it? Because then I'll create a diamond from the pressure, from forcing that transparency, that open, that honesty. And if they're not, and I apply that pressure, they'll crumble. Like they won't be able to do the job. They'll step down. They'll resign. They know they can't do it from those things. But it's all in my control. All of it. It's in theirs too.
Yeah, and I will say, like, step down, resign, whatever. There's been people who we've put pressure.
Yeah.
But they repositioned. Mm-hmm. They understood and accepted it, but weren't there yet, so they repositioned. And
they admit, hey man, like I'm not here yet. Like, or if they step down, they know that they're not there yet.
Yeah.
Like they know, like, man, I can't do this job. I thought I could, or I'm not, good core value fit, but maybe skill lacked.
But because they admitted it, they pulled it within their control, and they were okay with knowing what the next steps were. I think that was the biggest thing, is like, if they didn't do that, then there would have been so much insecurity with themselves, so much doubt, so much frustration and anxiety, because they weren't able to be real, or kind of like, I don't know, it's just pulling that into your control by admitting it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, and again, everybody has a form of like ego attached to things, or we care too much about what other people are going to say and think, right? I mean, how many times have we heard, or we've done it ourselves, you don't want to fire a bad employee because you're scared they're going to do something. You're scared they're going to leave a bad review. You're scared that they're going to steal stuff. Like I had somebody message me that she literally feels hostage right now about someone in her office. Could I help? And it's one of those things where it sucks to put someone under that much pressure, but if we don't apply that pressure, like we don't, things become out of our control, or at least they feel like they're out of control.
Yeah.
Right? And then we're held hostage to our businesses. We become like paralyzed by procrastination or by fear. But in reality, you always have to ask yourself, to everything, what's the worst thing that would happen? Mm-hmm. What's the worst thing that would happen if I did this, or if I shared transparently? What's the worst thing that would happen if I taught through lessons and failures and I removed my ego?
Yeah. Could I at least be okay with myself knowing that I was open about it, instead of feeling shame because you didn't?
Oh, I was so shameful. Like, and I tell the story all the time. I never talked about my past. I actually pushed it so far down, and I don't remember if I said this last podcast, last live. I pushed it so far down that I actually forgot like that happened to me. Because I was in such denial, and I rewrote my past in my own head, that I forgot that happened to me. But it made me who I was right now. And so it was like living in shame or fear of what other people were going to say. Like, oh my God, I can't believe she let that happen to her. Or like, oh my gosh, I can't believe she tolerated that. And I was too worried about what other people would say. Mm-hmm. So it's crazy. We have a ton of people on here this morning. Everyone's like, I love it. I love this. Thank you for sharing transparently. My last fear to hold me back, and I had to accept it.
Had to accept it and phase them.
Phase them. Yes.
Yes. Phase them out. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And we have Maria on here, Shelly. If you guys have questions, we were just talking about, having dinner and somebody asking Chris about his past. And Chris was giving some really flat answers.
Yeah.
And I'm over here looking at him like, really? Like, really?
I knew what she was doing too, because as I answered, it was like 3 questions deep, and I just surface level.
And I'm like, and I told, and we were having dinner with Aaron, and I said, oh, he's not being open. He's not telling you the whole story.
Yeah.
And I wanted to call Chris out on it, because in our couples quarterly planning, we do it every quarter. We give each other the permission to call each other out. If he wouldn't have given me the permission to call him out, I would not have done that to him. So I don't want you guys to think I'm some, you know what.
And because I gave you permission, I have to be okay with it. It's like, I know what's going to come. And so I'm all right. But if you have a spouse and you're like, I'm just going to throw it at him and call him out, but you didn't predefine that relationship, you're going to get some pissed off people.
Yeah. Yeah, I would never do that without like the permission, with him, like us granting each other permission to call each other out.
And the permission is not asked for in the moment. It's at a previous time. I just want to make that it's not one of those, can I be real with you? Or,
No, yeah, we predefined it. Like, we do it every quarter. Hey, call me out on these things.
Yeah.
He calls me out all the time, because I'm like, oh, I'm not ready yet. Or, oh, I think I'm going to launch blah, blah, blah. And he's like, what? What'd you say? Because that's one of the things he's supposed to call me out on. And so you can't just call somebody out if they don't want that. If they're not ready for it, they don't want to have those. And everyone has to be ready at a different time.
Yeah.
Right. But for me, I knew I couldn't get to the next level of what I was trying to achieve in helping people if I couldn't help myself. It goes back to the phrase, I can't coach you, I cannot mentor you if you're not being real, true, or honest with yourself or with anything. Like, you're not coachable.
Yeah.
You can't even learn anything. And then maybe we wonder why we're stuck, or we wonder why we pay for maybe coaching or mentoring or courses, and we're not moving forward, because I think you have to ask yourself, am I doing the work in here that I need to do to grow?
Yeah.
I got to be open. I got to be honest with myself. I have to admit when I'm wrong. Otherwise, you're not going to grow. Like, I posted a post the other day, the one in the swimsuit. I'm sure you guys all saw me. I did it on purpose. I posted that post on purpose. Typically, I don't show up on social media half naked, but I did it on purpose. And I did it on purpose to hold me accountable. I wasn't trying to show off. I wasn't trying to say, look at me. It holds me accountable when I say, I used to weigh 210 pounds, and now I fluctuate between 140 and 145. Now I weigh 140. And this is how I did it. Like, these are all the things that changed. And the reason I posted it online is because it holds me accountable, because you guys all see now what I look like. And I have to keep doing it. I don't want to go and gain 10 or 20 pounds again. I don't want to go and if you don't openly share it transparently and you hide behind, you can gain those 20 pounds back and no one would know, but you'll know. And so when I shared online, because I told Chris I did it to hold me accountable.
Yeah.
So that I don't slip. I don't go back to the old version. I keep going forward. And if I kept it a secret to myself, I would be the only one that I would know. I'd be the only one that would know when I let myself down.
But then you'd still have this level of shame that just builds up.
Yeah.
Because of that.
Oh, yeah. Because I've played this yo-yo game with weight. And for all the women listening, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. When I was 210 pounds, I've lived on salads and grilled chicken and couldn't eat anything. And I would exercise every day and go to the gym. And you'd lose 10 pounds, you'd get so happy, and then you'd gain 9 back or 11, and you'd be like, what the heck? And you wouldn't tell anybody your weight. I was so ashamed to tell people what my weight was. But again, it goes back to admitting certain things, being true, being open, having that conversation with myself, saying, I never want to go back there. So how do I stay here?
Yeah.
The way I stay here is by openly sharing it, because you know my story, whether it's in words or pictures or videos. And if I go back, I want you to call me out, guys. I want you to say, hey, Libby, remember that picture in the bathing suit on the beach? You don't look like that no more. I want you to say that to me if you see me and I look like crap. So I was at a boardroom meeting. So I'm in Dan Martell's boardroom. There's only a small group of us allowed in. I think he's got like 40 people. And one of my good friends, he's the guy who got me onto the carnivore diet, right? He looked phenomenal like 3 months prior. We meet every quarter in person. He looked great. And then in Denver this summer, I walked up to him and I was like, his name's David. I was like, hey, David, you don't look very good. Like, you've put on some weight. And, and that was like the first thing I said to him. I hadn't seen him in a quarter. Not like, hey, how are you? Oh my God, you look great. No, like there's no fluff, no baloney. And that's what I said to him. I was like, David, man, like, you're not looking that great. You've put on a few pounds. Is everything okay? And he was like, actually, he's like, I can't stop. Like, he couldn't stop eating certain things. Like, he's just like, I just want a granola bar. And so he came back later. Dude, the guy come back. He's ripped, got a 6-pack. And he goes, Libby, I just want to thank you because you called me out. Nobody else said. It was me and another person said, like, something's going on. You don't look that good. And he said, I was just struggling. He goes, but you called me out, and I want to thank you for that. Most people won't do that. And that's why, like, I posted that picture, was to say, hey, call me out if I don't look like that the next time you see me.
Yeah.
Call me out, because now you know the inside. And if we don't do these things, there ain't no one to call us out. We ain't going to call ourselves out.
Right. And I don't want to be bold to say it, but if you wouldn't have called him out, he might have still been on and off and just not as locked in as he is right now with his health journey and, how he is right now. I mean, I see posts from him every day. And
oh, he's on it now.
Yeah.
He's on it.
He's good.
Because I'm going to see him again in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
And he's like, I know if I don't look the same, you're going to say something to me. And I probably will.
Yeah.
But, it's one of those things where, for me, that's why I did it. But we have some comments here. That's a good friend. Amy says, it's hard to hear. It is. But if you're on that journey of self-discovery, tell the world so that we know it's okay to call you out, like if something happens. And I did it with kindness and empathy, but it's that kind candor. Like, I'm kind, but I'm not going to I'm not going to lie to you.
I'm going to be real.
I'm going to be real. That's why I had 87 people unfollow me in the last month. And Teresa says, I can totally relate with the weight gain up and down. Chris has seen me struggle for years with weight. With years. Now, man, I can eat as much as I want of, the foods within our journey. And I'm no longer hungry. I no longer struggle. It's just incredible.
I will say that it is really cool I learned the concept of what true weight means, because everybody says, I need to lose weight, I need to do this and that. But there's the idea of there's a true weight that your body
it's
sits
supposed
at.
to be.
It regulates itself at that true weight, but it never reaches that. And I'm getting a little bit extreme here, but with certain other diets or things that you eat, you never achieve that true weight balance. And so that's why it's always difficult until there's certain things that are either in or out.
Yes. And April said, "Thank you so much for sharing your story, being brutally honest with us. It's different from others. They're only sharing highlights of their lives." Carla, still following you. I love transparency and people being brutal and blunt and direct. You know how they say all business owners have something wrong with them? Like business owners, like we're either like ADD, ADHD, dyslexic. I think I'm dyslexic. I see all like words and numbers backwards.
Oh no, yeah, she's definitely she's speaking Spanish and English.
Yeah, I also grew up speaking Spanish and English, so I'm fluent. I'm bilingual in Spanish. But I'm like, or my brain moves so fast that when I'm reading, like I'm blurring all the lines. You should see my handwriting. It's like hieroglyphics.
Exactly. See,
I can't even say it.
Hieroglyphs.
Hieroglyphs. Whatever. But yeah, I'm like, and then my mom and my sister make fun of me all the time. Not like bad. They're like, we don't know how you own so many businesses when you can't even spell. I can't spell to save my life. I can do math really well. Math, I'm good at. Numbers, I'm great at. I have a memory like you cannot believe. I can remember anything, but I can't spell. And then when I read, I'm like, am I dyslexic? Why am I looking at this backwards? But anyways, totally off topic. So, you know, and that's why so for me, that's why I've really enjoyed sharing this new journey of like health and weight loss and clarity and like what we're trying to achieve. And me and Chris, like doing this, we're not selling anything. We're not trying to do anything. We're just trying to share in a way that most people don't.
Yeah.
You know, that being said, this Morning Date Live has changed our life. We turned it into a podcast, so now you can find it on Spotify and Apple and all the podcast networks. And it is called Coffee and Chaos. Don't ask me why I named it Coffee and Chaos. I should have named it Morning Date Live.
Yeah.
I could change the name.
There's still time.
I can change the name. And so that way you can listen to it anywhere, anytime. You can go back and find different episodes. Because we post 4 videos a day on my profile, 4 reels. So all the videos get buried. Somebody asked me the other day, hey, can you send me the link to the video about blah, blah, blah? And I was looking through my social media feed. I was like, oh my God, there's 1,000 videos that have been posted in the last 2 months. I'm like, I can't
Can you be
find
a little bit more specific?
I can't find it. And, you know, sharing through our journey, because I've spent a tremendous amount of money hiring coaches, like doing wellness work, breath work, and money and time just trying to learn this. And you think this would be easy, but again, I think we don't want to be judged. We're scared of what society might say. So this is now a podcast. Again, you can find it. We'll drop the links in on all the networks. And I'm super excited to say the Libby DeLucian profile has 10,000 followers. Woo! We've been trying, guys. It's so hard. We're getting ready for the book launch. And I need to build up my personal brand to sell the book. And so we've been working hard on the Libby DeLucian page. And that's, if you don't like listening to my personal stuff, if you go over to the Libby DeLucian page, all that is just business. That's how we separated it. So there's a Libby Garcia DeLucian. That's personal. That's Yaya. That's my marriage, my health journey. And then just Libby DeLucian page on Facebook is nothing but business insights.
Yeah.
Because I had someone get mad at me, and so they said, I never want to see your stuff again. So I blocked them. And then they got mad because I blocked them, because they said, but your stuff is really good and I still want to see it, but I don't want to see you. So I was like, okay, you can go follow the Libby DeLucian page, and that's all business. And then she's like, okay, great. It's like, because I don't really like you. And I was like, okay, that's fine. But yeah, so if you don't want to see the personal stuff, like marriage and kids and life, the Libby DeLucian page is all business.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, to each their own. It didn't hurt my feelings. I know it's. I actually felt it was a compliment that she didn't like me, which is fine because that's her personal opinion. But she loved my business insights.
Yeah, and I will say, if you want to lean in more to the health journey, to the, I guess, the mindset and the whole life profit, and you haven't yet, come join the Higher Profit Tribe. It's our closed group. I will be much, much more active now that we've gotten through this hump of 350 hours of work.
Yeah. In the Higher Profits Tribe, it's all about living a more profitable life, not money. It's like profitable marriages, relationships, health. And I posted something in there yesterday, and I bet you guys didn't know this. This is super cool. And I couldn't figure out why. But on carnivore, that's how we eat, you don't get sunburned. You do not need sunblock. And I noticed this over the summer because in Oklahoma, we spent most of the summer in Oklahoma. And in Oklahoma, in summer, it's like 110 degrees. Like it's like 114. It is brutal hot. And I noticed that I'm like, I'm not even getting red or burning. And I'd mentioned that during carnivore, we noticed the first thing that changed on me was, so for some of the ladies that are getting a little bit older, over 40, I'm over 40. Do you notice like the skin on your arms getting thinner, like, and you know, kind of freaks you out? And also your hands. I'm like, oh my God, I have old lady hands. They're wrinkled. The first thing that I noticed that changed when I started to go more carnivore was my skin. For me, it was like instant. I noticed the skin. And so a study, an article just released, and we put it in the Higher Profits Tribe, right? Living a more profitable life. And it's because essentially you don't need sunblock or sunglasses. I noticed my eyes are not sensitive to sun anymore because the reason you needed sunblock was you didn't have seed oils and not enough cholesterol in the body did not allow the sun rays to.
Oh, this is the first, by the way, this is the first time that we've had a camera issue this podcast for those that are listening, not watching.
Sorry, I was talking with my hands. It was the first time, or no, I'm sorry. Your body didn't have enough cholesterol in it, and the seed oil was preventing the sun, preventing your body from turning those sun rays into vitamin D. And then that's why we have a vitamin D deficiency or vitamin D issue, because we're putting sunblock on, because we're getting burnt, because our body doesn't have enough cholesterol in it, or we have too much seed oil in it to turn it into vitamin D. Which is so interesting. If you guys want to see the article, like we dropped it in the Higher Profits Tribe because not everyone wants to follow what we're doing. But we don't burn. We spent 3 days in the Virgin Islands. I did not a drop of sunblock, and I'm not even red. And we sat on the beach every day.
I did get an Oreo tan though. I had one
Chris
side
got
of me
red for a second, but it went away.
Yeah, it did go away. But I made the mistake of having a great conversation on the beach the entire day, and I was talking over here, but the sun was over here. And so I noticed the next day I had this tan on one side of my face. And then I went and balanced it out the next day, and it was all good. But it soaked in, it stayed, no peeling. It's crazy.
It's one of those weird things. So I just thought he mentioned the Higher Profits Tribe, and that was an article we posted in there.
But I do plan, by the way, this is one of the things that I want to do, because again, with my practice of full transparency, I am trying to lean into that and share a lot more. I've always been a more philosophical or psychological type of person. I like to think and think about people. So, but
meanwhile, I'm over here like I don't care.
No, I want to learn more about myself and just like lean into those issues. So, I mean, if that's your kind of jam, then I'm gonna be active more in that group and sharing what I've been feeling, what I know.
Yeah,
being more open.
And we have one of our friends who are following the way we're eating as well, and he said, "Oh my God, his testosterone level has increased, and he no longer needs to take the pellets or the supplements." So for ladies, if your husbands are struggling with energy, because he said with correcting the testosterone, it corrected his energy level. So ladies, if your husbands are struggling with energy or testosterone, or thinking about taking testosterone like the pellets, join that Higher Profits Tribe, because we did talk about like how certain foods affect testosterone or energy level, especially in men.
It's sex drive.
Sex drive. Yes. So again, not for everybody. The other couple things I wanted to mention before, I don't see if we have any, we have no questions. Amy said she was, her skin, she burns. She has alligator skin. No, you don't. But incredible. And, I'm just going to see if there's any questions. No questions. If you guys have questions, drop them in. This is completely open chat. We just pick topics to talk about until someone has a question. Another topic to talk about, I was super honored to be voted one of the top 20 cleaning influencers to follow in 2025 in the cleaning industry. And so you guys are going to laugh at me when this is my comparison to in the cleaning industry. It's like money, right? There's old money and new money. You know, when you talk about wealthy people, like, ooh, old money and new money. So in cleaning, I said there's like old cleaning and new cleaning. I am not from the cleaning industry originally. I know nothing about it before I got into it. And I've been in it about 6 years now. And so I said, oh, I'm new cleaning versus like, we have so many great coaches that were in that segment of people that come from old cleaning. Like they've been in it for years and they're like great coaches and really big influencers because they have so much history behind them. And I said, oh, I'm new cleaning. I thought to myself, I'm new cleaning and I got voted in to be in the top 20.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was like an honor to be like in the category with old cleaning. Those influencers and coaches and people that have been in the industry for so long. And meanwhile, I'm kind of like newish.
Amy had a question. She said, in that other group, in the Higher Profits Tribe, do you talk about your diet? Yes, we talk about it a lot more openly in there, just because, it's important to us.
Yeah, actually, Amy, in that group, I dropped Libby's guide to, what is it called?
Carnivore Care Guide.
Carnivore Care Guide. So it's everything I eat. And we made it because I travel so much between my assistant and like Chris and traveling and poor Diana asking me, what do you eat?
So it's come from the live entertainment industry. So bands, they have their riders. Every time they go to an event.
It's my rider.
They have their rider. So that's like what they have, what they don't have.
Green M&Ms.
Yeah.
I don't have them. So yes, we talk about, so I put what I eat, all like it's a small list.
And what you don't eat.
And what I don't eat, what time I eat. And so that's in there. So we're very transparent with it. We share a lot of articles from groups. And here's the thing, we don't push one way or the other. We'll give you what we're doing, but in our research, we found like you have to be an extreme one way or the other.
Yeah.
Right? You either have to be an extreme vegan or an extreme carnivore. It's that messy middle, like steak and potatoes for dinner. It's that messy middle, which is in our research is what we found.
Yeah.
Is like the biggest American issue.
And to give you a simple secret, it is because the issues come up because it's in combination with, that's the phrase I use, in combination with is the reason why cancer exists, or because there's health problems, or let's say concerns about weight. It's because it's in combination with, that's always the issue. And I will say that for both ends of the spectrum, whether it's vegan or carnivore, and there's different things, but the common trend is that there are no carbs on either side. And if there are, it's because of that in combination with. Not to get too deep in there, but if you want to hear more, Higher Profits Tribe. Teresa McConnell, though, I saw that she posted, I gave it to my husband. He said, thank you, the Carnivore Care Guide. I do remember Teresa mentioning that her husband's been on it, on working through carnivore or some level of it, and is doing great. So that's great to hear, Teresa. I always love seeing what you guys are up to on Facebook.
Yeah. And so that's all in there. Hey, Aaron is here. Aaron, we've talked about you a lot at the beginning. Don't tell him.
Don't rewatch it.
Don't rewatch it. So the last thing, so if you guys are interested, you could go over there. It is affected so much, just eating, like So let's say, who cares what kind of eating? It's affected so much. I've tried everything as a woman, like salads, chicken, um, you know, I've just tried everything you could ever imagine. And I think you have to find what works for your body, but you have to be willing to try and you have to have curiosity. Without curiosity, there's no openness or willingness to try and fail, right? So have that curiosity and just do your research, learn. And then the last thing I want to say is not last thing, but Amy said, let's see, must take so much discipline. So I cut out carbs and sugar, Amy, like 3 years ago. Mine was not an overnight like journey. It just, maybe it looks like it I don't know. And everyone always told me, oh, but you weren't that big before. I'm like, because I didn't wear a bathing suit on the beach to show you. But I was unhealthy and considered morbidly obese at 210 pounds. I mean, in American standards, that's morbidly obese. So mine was a slow journey. I cut out carbs and sugar first. That was easier for me. And that gave me a big impact. I think I lost the first 50 pounds with that journey. And then when I went to carnivore, I lost another like 15. And that set me at my true weight. Like, what am I supposed to be? Going straight carnivore was a little bit harder because it's so freaking boring. It's so boring. That's the only issue. Like, I can eat filet mignon or steak every night for dinner. It's just a little boring. But once you learn, your hungers change, your cravings change, your taste buds change. You don't crave sugar. There is 900, and we didn't even see this. This was the title. It's being sugar-free and living in a house with 984 Girl Scout cookies.
Of cookies.
Girl Scout boxes of cookies.
Not including the ones we have in the freezer still from last year.
We have some in the freezer from last year, and I'm proud to say I did not eat one. I did not eat one of those cookies last year. I did buy cookies because we gave them to customers and our cleaners, but I did not eat one cookie last year.
I, however, had a lot, and
He
I felt
had a
sick
lot.
after eating a lot. But Amy, real quickly, I had plans of creating a transition timeline in a more visual way to at least share what our transitions look like in different ways. Because I know that that's hard. Is like people say, you got to eat this or you got to do that and do it over time or whatever. But without knowing, because I had this struggle too, is what the hell do I eat? Like, what am I supposed to eat? What is right? What's wrong? Am I on the right track? I have no idea. There's so many foods out in the world. There's, 500 different types of bread. Am I supposed to have like 3 out of the 500 or is none of them? So I thought that a timeline would help to kind of give like at least what we've done and to put into perspective.
Yeah, and so still buy Girl Scout cookies. Don't not buy Girl Scout cookies, everybody. Even though I said I didn't eat one, I bought them and gave them away.
They were delicious.
So Amy said, how long have you been eating this way? So for me, Amy, I started, I went no carbs, no sugar. I was 2, so 4 years ago. I keep saying 3, but time flies when you're having fun. I started no carbs, no sugar about 4 years ago. I did go to a doctor, a weight loss doctor, because I needed help. Like, I was depressed. I was tired of being tired. I had no energy. I couldn't get any work done. I was like reading and learning and nothing was sticking in my brain. Like nothing was absorbing. I couldn't implement anything. And that was at like my biggest weight. And Yaya was 2 by that time. So I couldn't use the baby excuse anymore. Mm-hmm. I was riding on that excuse. So I went to a weight loss doctor, Dr. Giselle. She follows me on social media, and maybe she'll see this. I went to a weight loss doctor, and she said, okay, she did put me on some prescription weight loss medicine. That helped. But then she also said, we have to cut all carbs and sugar. And I was like, oh, crap, okay. So I did it, and I have not had a piece of fruit in 4 years. Okay. And I have not had a vegetable in a year
That's not pickled.
that's not pickled. So I went carbs and sugar free first. That was 4 years ago. I was 3 years that way. And then I went carnivore because I needed the next thing, right? Like Dan Martell says, if we want to get to the next version of ourselves, the next level, we have to give up something. I want you to remember that. You cannot get to where you want to be. Carla said that she's looking for her true purpose. We cannot get there. The third mountain, right, on my hat. Next level of revenue, next level of business, next level of like inner peace, of purpose. We cannot get there until we give up something else. Mm-hmm. It's just impossible. And so I was like, okay, I'm willing to give up the sugar and carbs. So I cut out when I started, all sugar, natural sugar, processed sugar, and all carbs. So that was the first phase. And I still had vegetables and whole foods. And I did that for about 3 years, lost the 50 pounds. It was great. But then I started to stall. And I knew I wasn't there yet. My arthritis in my hands came back. If like you guys don't know, I have extremely bad hands. I have like one hand or finger that doesn't even work. So many years of working physically with my hands and playing basketball. My arthritis started to come back, and I told Chris, I'm like, man, I need something else. Like it's slowly coming back. I just started to slowly gain a little bit more weight. And then that's when I had dinner with a friend, the friend that I called out. Remember when I said I seen him and I was like, hey, man, like you don't look so good. You've gained a little weight. He introduced me to carnivore. And I was at a dinner in Austin, Texas, and I was passing the food around the table because we were eating like family style. And he's like, oh, no, I don't want any. I think it was like potatoes or vegetables. He goes, no, I'm waiting for the meat. And I was like, oh, okay. He's like, yeah, I'm carnivore. And I was like, oh, well, tell me more about that. And I learned it there, and I called Chris and I said, I found the next thing. Like I found the next thing. And again, so it's being open to learning and like, like that's interesting. I'd never heard of it. I didn't know what it was. And after that, then we went, I went almost a year pure carnivore, Amy. It was a slow progression into carnivore, like, cause you got to cut out. Everyone's like, you want a cheeseburger with no bread? Do you want it wrapped in lettuce? I'm like, no, I want it wrapped in bacon. So it was a slow phase, but about a year. And Chris shortly followed me after that.
Yeah. But I had to learn and research it first because that's just who I am.
Yes, Amy, all fruit, it's sugar. It turns into sugar in your body. It doesn't matter that it grows on a tree. And so if you think about us in like caveman days, right? We survived on hunting, meat, right? Hunting, eating very little. And if we ate fruit, let's just say blueberries. If we ate blueberries, we only got like 3. And it was like once or twice a year that we got to eat like 3 blueberries. So it wouldn't be enough to spike like, or take you out of ketosis. Instead of nowadays, we go to Smoothie King and we get a whole craft of blueberries in a smoothie. And if you were to look at the amount of sugar in a smoothie, you would fall over and die. But it's like an overconsumption of the fruit because we don't need as much.
Yeah.
Or any. There's a great book called The Big Fat Surprise. And it talks about how other countries, cultures, and even different parts of the world, say like in Antarctica, how they don't have disease issues, like they don't have weight issues, disease issues, and they're not eating any plants because they can't grow anything because it's so cold. And so it's just really interesting when you start to learn. You're kind of like, oh, that is interesting.
Yeah.
But if you look at fruit versus like, why are we eating it? Is it for certain health reasons, and what were those? We have to remember, and I'm not going to get political, who invented our food pyramid, right? Just ask yourself, who invented the food pyramid? You can tell yourself. I'm not going to tell you. We know. So just taking a look at that and saying, why am I eating fruit? Is it for the nutritional facts? Well, what are those? Doing that research. Because I can, and in that other Facebook group we were talking about, I dropped a picture of a steak, and it shows all of the nutritional value that you get from a steak.
Yeah.
I threw away all of our supplements, all of them. I don't take one vitamin and haven't for a year. Before I had like 15 bottles of vitamins, like, oh, I need fish oil and omega and vitamin D. And like, I take none, and I've never felt more amazing and better.
Yeah. I see here, Teresa McConnell, she said, I eat it because I'm craving sugar. I think that's tough because, I mean, there's one thing that I learned, and it was that, because I honestly didn't know, I was blind to what carbohydrates were versus sugar versus everything else. But come to find out that sugar is actually a form of a carbohydrate. And really, if your body works on two different types of energy sources, depending on what it's fed, it's either going to be fat or it's going to be carbohydrates, which sugar breaks, is basically the way that it metabolizes or it's used. So craving fruit or craving sugar, I think it's because your body is still currently either dependent on carbohydrates as its direct form, because it prioritizes that. Because it, again, think of abundance, is that it usually doesn't have an abundance of that. So it's like crack for your body. But it damages it over time, just because of the way that it's made up and how your body uses it, because it's not supposed to be a long-term source of energy. But it's craving it because of one of two reasons. One is that your body still has a dependency on the carbs because it's what it's been riding on. Or your body lacks the other source of energy if you've been cutting out carbs, making it even worse because your body needs something to fuel itself, and it's either going to be fat or it's going to be carbs. And so if you're not giving it the proper fuel, but you're trying to eat very lean
or little,
like salads and lean chicken and stuff. And I learned this the hard way myself because it was hard for me. But because I didn't give my body the proper energy, fat or carbs, is that I started to crave what I knew, which was carbs, and I wanted to eat more of it. So as long as you keep your body, one, in ketosis, and two, satiated, happy.
What the heck is satiated?
It means full. Your
Oh,
body
okay.
has what it needs.
Just say full.
When your body has
Satisfied.
Satisfied.
Okay. Chris
Then-
uses big words. I'm like, what does that mean? What does that mean to you? That's how I say it, so it doesn't sound like I'm like, I don't understand.
But when your body is satisfied, when it has what it needs, it's not going to kick back like a bucking bronco, wanting to like rush for the bread or rush for the fruit, because it's all right. It's good.
Yes. So we have a bunch of questions. So what do you have for breakfast? Carla said. I don't typically eat breakfast.
If you ask skinny dogs.
Yeah, I don't typically eat breakfast. Chris does. Because what are you, an endomorphic, and I'm a.
Oh gosh. Okay. I am ectomorphic.
He's ectomorphic and I'm endomorphic. So it's body types. We've went off the deep end, guys. Like we're just like.
So
went off the deep
in a
end.
nutshell, there's ecto, meso, and endo. Ectomorphic is extremely inefficient. It does not store any energy, and it also prioritizes burning protein or using protein as a alternative if there's no energy left. So that means that I typically have a higher metabolism and I can't keep weight on, but it also breaks down muscle much faster. Meso is the balance. So my body is very inefficient. Meso is kind of the balance of optimized body type. And if you got it, fantastic.
Yeah, and then ladies, if you've struggled with your weight most of your life, like me, explain it.
Endomorphic is basically when your body prioritizes storing energy, and typically this comes because there were certain geographic differences where you had the need. Again, our bodies were built for 50,000 years ago. So think 50,000 years ago, certain body types were prioritizing storing energy because, again, think of like Alaska or whatever, wherever. Maybe there was not as much access to food, so they had to store it. So for those endomorphic body types, your body prioritizes storing energy, and it doesn't build. So here's the thing: is that it doesn't build muscle as quickly because it's prioritizing the storage as opposed to preparing your energy to build muscle or to execute. So it's harder, and they say that more cardio for endomorphic, less cardio for ectomorphic, but more heavy reps for ectomorphic, me, so that I can rebuild muscle faster because I'm going to break it down. But endomorphic still can maintain muscle, but you got to watch the storage of energy. Or in this case, they say fat, but I hate that. I hate saying that word because people think that fat is bad.
That is good.
Fat is good, but it's energy. Your body is storing energy.
Yeah.
So I'm
So
done.
like I need a little bit more cardio than Chris. If Chris does too much cardio, he's going to burn actual muscle. Break it down. I need more cardio because I'm storing too much fat, right? So I need to do just a little bit more cardio. And that's why you may feel like you're working out all the time and not losing any weight because your body is storing it, right? It's inefficient in that way.
It's harder for it to build muscle because of the way that it stores energy. It takes longer for it, or just the routes it has to go to turn it or
To
convert
get
it
tone.
into muscle.
Yeah.
It takes a little bit longer, or it takes a different route to build muscle for endomorphic.
For endomorphic. So, go back to the questions because there was a ton. So what's for breakfast? I don't typically eat breakfast. You're going to notice on this type of eating, you don't eat a lot. You're just not that hungry all the time. So for breakfast, if I do eat breakfast, it's like at 10 or 11, and then I don't eat again till dinner. Well, Chris eats 3 times a day. I only eat maybe twice, and I eat when I'm hungry. We don't typically like, oh, it's like 5 o'clock, we have to eat. And I find that I can eat as much as I want, but it doesn't take as much food to fill me up. So for breakfast, eggs, bacon, cheddar cheese, steak and eggs is a great breakfast. So that's what I would eat for breakfast. And then somebody else asked, do I take any protein supplement? No.
That's a great question.
No, I don't take any protein supplement. Everything we're eating is high protein, high fat. The only thing that we eat that is not protein is that we eat pickled, like pickles or olives.
Aaron posted earlier about the sexy olive salad.
Sexy olive salad. So we eat, and the reason we eat them is because when they go through the pickling process, it rids them of all the toxins. Because in reality, vegetables are not supposed to be eaten. Like that's just going to blow your mind when you're like, what? But as a woman, and like all these diets are telling us to eat vegetables, but in reality, vegetables are not supposed to be eaten, and they're full of toxins. So, Chris, if you want to explain that.
Well, I won't go deep into that. I think, but it always piqued my interest when I was like, I wonder if that has anything to do with the reason why vegetables taste bitter.
Bitter. Mm-hmm.
Because there's got to be a reason why our bodies reject the idea of eating vegetables.
Why do kids not like them?
Why do kids not like them? And kids are usually their brains and before they get pre-programmed, they're basically the source of truth. If you want to know anything, the real truth, talk to a kid. But I think that's clues to the source of truth. They say that kids actually are fantastic climbers because, and I say rock climbing, we lose that ability because we reprogram our bodies in ways that we think it's supposed to act, and not what's natural.
Yeah.
So the same thing with food is I think there's clues as to how kids act and react to certain foods that tells us, subconsciously what our bodies are need or are trying to tell us.
Yeah. So another question: how many times a day do we eat? Like I said, probably eat twice a day. Chris eats 3 times a day. Sometimes I eat 3 times a day.
Yeah.
It just depends if we're going somewhere or we're out or. But I'm not typically hungry in the morning. I used to drink protein shakes and I stopped all that because when your body is running clean, it's like gas, right? If we go to the gas station, we get some bad gas. The car will still run, but it's kind of like jalopy. It's like it's misfiring, it's kind of putting along, but it still runs. But if we use really good high octane, like the super expensive gas, the car runs like $1,000,000. That's my comparison to how I felt before and how I feel now.
Yeah.
My body still ran, but a little like, eh. And so as far as the protein shakes I used to drink, once you're running clean, you eat anything that is not like clean or whole, or if it's got too much preservatives in it, you don't like it, you don't want it, you don't even need it.
I was sad that I'm a Marylander, so I love my Old Bay. But I tried to put Old Bay, even light seasoning of Old Bay on the hamburgers. Mm-hmm. And I was like, man, I felt so sick. And it's because it's the spices, not spicy, but the spices. It doesn't sit right anymore because your body has adjusted to a very, very clean environment.
We used to love spicy food.
Yeah.
We loved Mexican food, and he loved Indian food. Like, we can't eat it now.
Yeah.
And also, it has one of the highest levels of toxins in it. That's the spice. The spiciness is just trying to keep you from eating it.
Yeah. Yep.
Which is crazy. You're like, oh
Yeah.
my God, that makes so much sense.
Yep. So back to Caitlin though, because she asked about do you take other protein supplements? I want to lead further into that. Is no, we don't. But I get what you're trying to ask, because I did phase into protein supplements, and I'll tell you the reason why. I was supplementing, and we still have.
Yeah,
We have protein shakes.
I have it's all beef protein powder that I used in case like I got hungry or I was traveling or I don't have a meal, but I can't. I don't like the artificial taste of it.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, Caitlin, is I use protein supplements as I transitioned in because 2 reasons. One is I was worried about losing too much weight, and secondly is I thought I needed it because to kind of curb cravings or whatever, until I started to realize, and as I was getting more comfortable with the diet, so maybe it was more of a transition or a phase in, but once I got used to this way of eating, I could not stand the protein supplements anymore because number one, it had additives in it. If it has, maltodextrin or other things like that, it made me lightheaded and I started to feel it more. But what I realized was the protein supplements, the thing that I wanted from it, the reason why I wanted it was because I was not getting enough energy, I wasn't full.
Fat.
I wasn't getting enough fat in my current food intake.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reason why I was using protein supplements. Once I figured out that, okay, chicken is a side dish, not a main course, and ribeye or eggs or salmon.
Amy, I got it for you. When he gets done, I'm going to tell you how we do pizza.
So I started to lean in and I was like, okay, I actually ChatGPT'd and I dug in deep. I was like, are we supposed to eat the fat in the ribeye or are we supposed to cut it out? I'm like, will this make us sick? And it's like, no, if you kind of lean into it and more carnivore, they actually, depending on how much you can take in, is the fat content is, yes, you eat it and you eat the entire thing. And after I started to kind of, again, it's weird at first. But
I can't do it.
But after you start doing it and after you start to eat, I guess, like you would say, like true fatty foods, I did not need any supplements. My body was full and it told me when it was full. My body told me when I was going to eat. Some days ago, just 2 meals and they're big meals. Some days ago, 3 because I just didn't get enough stacked in to fill myself up. So Caitlin, to your question about protein supplements, no, I don't think we do anymore unless we don't get enough energy or our bodies don't feel that topped off.
Or I'm traveling. Like an example is like I'm traveling and I can't get food. I may purchase a protein shake, but I have specific ones or I carry the powder myself.
Yeah. And I know that if I do a protein shake like Premier Protein or other things, those are good options for us. But I know that I'm still going to feel a little bit icky.
I found out that all these protein shakes have something in them that once your body's kind of running clean, I'm allergic to it. Like it makes my nose and my cheeks flushed. It gives me a headache.
Your stomach's a little bit little unsettled.
I feel like my blood pressure got high because my nose is tingly or my face is tingly. Like I don't know, but it does it to me every time, and so I've stopped drinking them altogether. But we have a bunch of questions here. Teresa said coffee. Oh, heck yes.
We're not 100% carnivore, just
We
to let you
drink
know.
coffee, but we drink half and half or heavy whipping cream in the coffee. Because you can have dairy, but not milk because milk has sugar in it. So you want to stick with like half and half or heavy whipping cream is the best because it has the least amount of sugar.
So rule of thumb here is milk has a lot of sugar. And basically, let's just say that it has a lot of carbs because sugar is carbs. Milk has a lot of carbs. Half and half has half of the amount of carbs that milk has.
No, it has less than half.
About
As a third.
about a third.
Third less.
Yeah. So skim milk versus half and half. And then from there, heavy cream has about half of the carbs that half and half has. So if you're looking at, let's say a latte, what we usually put in there is you could be, if you had whole milk, you'd be at like past your 20 carb limit for staying in keto with using whole milk in a latte. For like a grande latte at Starbucks, you'd already be kicked out basically by the end of that latte. If you used half and half, you'd stay within that limit about 10 carbs. So you could probably do 2 lattes throughout the day. And still stay comfortably, especially if you are like active and work out.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you take a walk.
Yeah. Then it'll kind of like dump that out. And then heavy cream, my favorite, because you can taste the fat. It tastes completely different. It tastes like you're drinking a mocha latte. Once you get clean, that's like your mocha latte vibe because it's got a high fat content
and it's bitter. Like chocolate.
Yeah.
Or like dark chocolate, but
so
it's not
heavy
sugar.
cream. I love heavy cream.
So Amy wanted to know, so other questions, did your grocery budget change? I think it balanced out, Faith, because we're not buying junk food. I will say my pantry is empty and there is nothing in our fridge but like bacon, cheddar cheese, and steak and hamburgers. And we eat salmon or a side of chicken. But again, beef is the main course and like chicken or salmon is like a side or an enhancement.
So I found that salmon, even though it doesn't hit the craving with, let's say, the salt, and salmon has a high fat content. And so it's great. But sometimes I need a little extra oomph from it. And I think it's because of the protein. I need a little extra something.
And then what time do we stop eating? We don't have, like, I have it on my sheet that we have a rule because it just makes me feel too full and I don't want to lay down. So like I don't want to eat any later than 7. I'd like to eat at like 6, but it's kids and sports and reality. Sometimes that doesn't happen.
So we will still snack. Usually they say like you don't need to snack if you're on carnivore because if your body is full, it doesn't need anything.
We barely snack on anything.
But if we do eat, I mean, it's like pickles or maybe a cheese or a hard-boiled egg. If you need to top off.
Yeah. And then here's Amy. This is why I want to get to Amy's question. She goes, you seriously don't miss pizza or burgers? She goes, in full transparency, I really think I would miss them. Well, Amy, let's see, the other day I ate a double bacon cheeseburger with extra cheese. So I still eat burgers. They just don't have any bread or vegetables on them, so no lettuce. But a double bacon cheeseburger with cheddar cheese, bacon, and a side of pickles. Amazing.
The best thing is cooking the bacon first and then putting the burgers inside of the bacon grease so it soaks it up, and then cooking the eggs in the burger and bacon grease.
Oh, then you can put an egg on top of your bacon cheeseburger. So you have
kind of a what do you call it? Medium, hard-boiled, what do we call it?
Yep. And so pizza. Let's talk about pizza. So when I first went carb and sugar free, Amy, my kids would still order pizza, and here's Libby with a salad. Like this was at the beginning. And smell is hard for me. I can look at food, but if I smell it, oh, I want to eat it. So the way we went the other night, and we went to a pizza place, and we ordered a large meat lovers with extra cheese for me and Chris, and and no tomato sauce, right? And all you'd have to do is flip the pizza over and take the cheese and meat off, and we don't eat the bread.
That's great.
So people were like, "Is the pizza okay?" I'm like, "The pizza's delicious. It's amazing. It's great."
I will say that it's not a good idea to do though, if again, because you won't feel if you're eating pizza that is not very clean, meaning that your sausages,
Oh, yeah.
your pepperonis, if they have additives, especially with the casing that they're, if they have additives in them, you will have issues.
Yes.
It's not true carnivore. It's not clean. If it's cured with salt and it's very clean, then yes, you can do sausage or
Yeah, so the pizza place we went to is a local, very good Italian, family owned. We didn't go to like Domino's Pizza.
yeah, but because you can screw yourself over really hard if you're not careful with cured meats.
Like sausages, ham, not like salami, pepperoni, sausages. Make sure that it's cured and it's not full of additives.
And most of the time, I will say this, I'll be honest with you, is that any cured meats that you see inside of a typical grocery store is probably not going to be good for you. It will hit you hard.
Yeah. So a couple people said, makes me wonder what's caused my IBS. And then somebody else, Caitlin said that, yeah, I get bloated when I eat clean protein. And I would love Chris to answer this question because he
Yes.
had the same problem and it was misinformation.
Yes, and it's Heather. Yes, clean protein. I'll get to that in a second. But the IBS, I'll be straight up. And thank you, by the way, for sharing that openly. I'm trying to do the same as well. But for me, I had a lot of stomach issues. I had a lot of issues with my gut before going carnivore. And I mean, I'm talking about like I had so a little bit too TMI issue with hemorrhoids and things like that. But it all came down to me paying closer attention. This was because when Libby started to transition, I started to pay attention and said, I still don't believe it. I still don't know what the heck, this is voodoo. But I researched it and I looked at it and I started to pay attention at what I was eating, my diet. I did not track carbs. I did not track nothing. But what I did do is I paid attention after every single meal because I started to eat clean, what I thought was clean. Lean foods, clean protein like chicken and whatever else. But I started to pay attention to every single thing that I took in, the time it took afterwards. And I found the trends. I caught the trends because I was paying attention to it really closely. I had major issues with my gut. I had a bad instance of drinking Coke, soda at a bar because it was just a social environment and I didn't have anything else to go to. I now have my go-tos, but I drank soda and I ate sausage, some cured meats that were not really clean. And I noticed that I had the worst experience I've had in the last couple of days because I was trying to eat much cleaner than I typically would. And then I went back to that shift and it killed me. And then I realized that, oh my gosh, these are the kinds of things that are throwing my body out of whack. And so I knew immediately that these are the things I'm going to stop eating. For me, it was pork, but it was because there was the histamines and it was histamine in combination with the additives, mostly in pork that happens.
But now you can eat pork.
But now I can eat pork when it's good pork. Mm-hmm. But what I was telling you is it was because of the additives, because of me paying attention to those types of foods, especially sausage. I'm very cautious about sausage now because a lot of things have additives in them that you don't really notice. And they don't tell you, and they say it's 100% beef. But what they don't tell you is it's 100% beef with additives. So
I have the same problem with hamburgers.
yeah.
So, and this is on carnivore now. I didn't have this problem before, but if I go anywhere and I get food that has additives in it, like not good, high quality food, no bueno for me. Like,
and some of these things, they say 100% real beef or 100% beef. If they say real beef, then that's really suspect because it probably means that they have additives in them. But 100% beef still has, again, it's in terms of how they're processed. Yes, the beef part of it is probably 100%, but there's the stuff in between the beef that holds it together or whatever.
yeah.
There's still, it's very difficult to find the real answer unless you call the manufacturer. I don't want you guys to get too deep, but you'll just
listen to your body.
Just
That's
try
all.
out different things and listen to your body closely and you'll get it. You'll know.
And I think the reason, like, so, you know, for some people saying with the stomach issues, that with the stomach issues is that we're eating it with a combination of other things. So again, the steak and potatoes. We don't know if it's the potatoes or if it's the steak. Well, if you go to the doctor, they're going to tell you it's the steak.
I was diagnosed as being red meat intolerant, meaning
So-
that I shouldn't eat red meat.
And so is it the steak or the potatoes? And typically we cannot listen to our body because we've put so many variations of things into it. We don't know what it is that's making us feel crummy or gaining weight. I weigh myself every morning. And some people are like, you shouldn't do that. And I'm like, well, I'm tracking myself. Like I want to be a high performing engine. And so I got to know like how are certain foods affecting me?
Yeah.
Before you're 10 pounds overweight, right? Or it's out of control. And so I'm trying to track, just like we track our KPIs in our business, guys, and our numbers. I track my weight and it's like, it's got to stay within this range. And if it doesn't, I got to make a change. Something's not working.
Yeah. I want to go back real quick to Caitlin's because I don't want to forget that. We have a ton of different comments. We'll try to get them knocked out. But Caitlin mentioned, I think she still felt icky with eating clean protein. And I think we kind of answered it, but I wanted to circle back to that. What do you mean by clean protein? Because I also had that kind of misinterpreted idea of what clean protein was. And I was leaning too far into chicken because I thought it was lean, meaning that it was pure protein, no fat, things like that is what I decided was clean protein. So I think hopefully that helps kind of clarify a few things. And what I realized was that we needed the fat and protein, especially with my body type, ectomorph. I need a 1.2 to 1 ratio of fat to protein, meaning that I need a little extra fat in terms of if my body, let's just say that it'll keep clean numbers here. If I'm 150 pounds, that means that effectively for ectomorph, I would need roughly about 150 grams of fat and 150 grams of protein to stay at my peak each day, throughout the day, to really be locked in. For endomorphs, those that store energy, they're probably going to look more like 0.8 to 1 ratio of fat to protein.
And there's a topic on here from Heather. Heather, you had said that when your husband passed in 2010, your period never returned. And so this is something that I noticed when I made the switch to eating this way. And so this is for women, right? Chris talked about his issues. Let's talk about women issues. The way that this diet affects, now I can talk about like way that affects your menstrual cycle is one of the second things I saw. I saw this change in my skin, but like for women, either women's menstrual cycle or if you're going through menopause. Oh my God. I don't know because I'm not going through menopause, but from what we've read and the friends that we have and the group that we're in that we follow, it helps so much with menopause as far as hot flashes, hormone imbalance. It is amazing, they say. But for menstrual cycles, it changed. It was amazing how it changed. There's no more bloating. Like there's no more cramping. It's crazy. It's like, and I said, is this normal? Like, let me research this. Let me look it up. Oh, maybe it was just this time. Maybe next time will be different. It's so amazing at how like there's no inflammation in your body, how the normal cycles that happen to us are completely different than what society has told us it's supposed to be like.
Yeah.
Like, it's just crazy. So thank you, Heather, for sharing that, because I know that's hard. And Kathy said she's really been researching this since becoming diabetic. And there is a group that, that talks about this all the time, but it's many people start carnivore because of being diagnosed with being diabetic or having cancer.
Yeah.
Because this is one of those things that can help stop that mutation or slow it down.
Because at the end of the day, disease, every disease is based on a source of, like, a type of inflammation, or basically that's the reason why diseases exist, is because of inflammation to some degree. Cancer are mutated cells that cannot properly be put to rest. They can't terminate themselves because our body, in combination with things like carbs, it cannot terminate defected or mutated cells. And so that's the reason why cancer thrives in an unclean environment with carbs, is because it's just the way that things are made up. But your body can properly break down or destroy or starve those mutated cells when in ketosis. And the same thing with diabetes is, what I've read is that with sugar and carbs, it spikes your insulin level, and then your body gets accustomed to being insulin resistant. And basically what I've understood is that insulin is a trigger to whether your body decides to store or release energy, or other things. I got to look it up, and I apologize, but it messes with your body's ability to make the proper actions to either store or release energy. And when you're insulin resistant, that means that your body can't do what it's supposed to do to keep you healthy, or to thrive or survive the same way. So being able to cut down on carbohydrates and sugar as a diabetic, and being able to use a different form of energy like fat, actually helps to rebalance your body. And so those that are diabetic can actually, rebalance their bodies.
He did, Corey. He read the entire encyclopedia. This guy knows everything about it. So his parents both passed away from cancer at a very young age. And so Chris was kind of resistant to me. Like, he didn't believe it. He's like, because, his mom died from colon cancer, and they said it was the meat.
Yes.
It was the meat. The meat did that to her. And so I'm over here doing my thing, like feeling great, living life. And he's just like, I don't understand this. Like,
and my dad, by the way, skinny as a rail, was borderline diabetic.
Yeah. Borderline. No, he was diabetic.
Actually, he was diabetic. I apologize. He was diabetic.
Skinny, also died of cancer. And I'm over here, and I'm like most business owners. I don't need to know all of it. Like, if it works, I'm gonna try it. Like, and he's over here reading the entire encyclopedia, Corey, every medical book you could think of, because he needs to understand it to believe it. I just need to see it to believe it, right? We learn different ways. And so he did read the entire book. But I wanna go to Amy's comment where she goes, she's been diagnosed with a bunch of stuff, and she goes, maybe I'm too far gone. It feels like I'm too far gone. So Amy, I want to tell you, like, at my heaviest, right? And Chris can contest because he saw me go through this. I have an autoimmune issue. So I have an autoimmune issue that causes my hand issues, my arthritis. I've had 3 surgeries. I've had lots of issues with my hands. I have severe allergies. From a scale of 1 to 5, I am a 5 on everything. Dogs, dust, dander. That's why I stopped cleaning. I had to get out. I couldn't go in people's houses. I couldn't even go organize anymore. I took daily allergy injections. I had an EpiPen and an inhaler. I went from not having that much stuff wrong with me that when I was 40, I was 39, I had yaya. And I also got influenza B and almost died. And so they don't know if it was the influenza B or birth at almost 40 that caused this, but it shocked my immune system. And from there, I had, you name it, I had 100 issues wrong with me. And I went and I was just like, oh my God, like there's all these issues. And when I cut out carbs and sugar, that alone, I could get off all of my allergy medicine. You're talking daily. They sent me into anaphylactic shock just by giving me the allergy test. So just by cutting the carbs and sugar, because carbs and sugar are a source of inflammation, and inflammation is a source of all disease, all issues, all. Just by cutting the carbs and sugars, put carnivore aside, I was able to get off all of the medicine that I was on. And the arthritis in my hands and the autoimmune issue that I had disappeared. The allergy issue, and the autoimmune issue disappeared. I still have some hand issues if I overwork or use my hands. But it's like, it all disappeared. But they kept feeding me medicine and kept diagnosing me with more things. And then the more medicine they gave me, the more issues that the medicine caused. The allergy injections made me so sick that I could barely get the injection so that I could stay alive without dying from an allergy reaction. But just the carbs and sugar alone. So you're not too far gone. Like, don't feel discouraged. Because, everyone has that story, but I said this in a video the other day, like, don't compare your chapter to my story. Cause it's the back end, like this has been 4 years in the making or 3 years in the making. But it's never too late.
Yeah. I've read stories, not gone through it personally, but read stories and seen people explain their story. That it's almost like they've reverted all the issues that have been caused by things like you mentioned, Amy. Their body is able to kind of rebuild and repurpose. Yes, I know that at a certain point, through how we age, our body generates less cells because we kind of stop that point of growth, but we can still repair what we have. And I've seen people say that even through older age, is that they've been able to repair their bodies drastically by switching to this.
Drastically. And so for Corey and Teresa, the carnivore diet's very interesting. You should look it up. It actually helps mental health and actually helps ADD, ADHD. It helps with focus. It helps with bipolar. It helps with paranoid schizophrenia. My
brother was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. I've always had it in my heart to want to encourage him or tell him to try to practice this way of eating. But again, I don't think it's my place to really push that, because again, then I would be trying to force something that I want. Mm-hmm. When right now he enjoys what he's doing and what he's whatever. But every disease known to mankind is caused by a source of inflammation, yes, even in the brain. Because we don't really understand the brain to the fullest, we don't really get it. But paranoid schizophrenia is a disconnect, a schism in different parts of your brain where it just doesn't zap information back and forth the right way. And so then it creates these hallucinations, these illusions that don't really click. But all of that can be kind of regressed or limited if we get rid of the inflammation. It becomes easier to zap back that information. People who have bipolar disorder are less bipolar. It doesn't cure it, because again, there's still a chemical imbalance, dysfunction. Yeah. But you can really reduce it and control it with all of these mental diseases, whatever they call them. And so that, to me, is like the most fascinating part, because I emotionally, like, I have this desire to want to learn more about the brain. And honestly, my first kick was because of my brother in his first mental outbreak with paranoid schizophrenia. I wanted to learn more about how the brain works and people work.
Yeah. And a lot of this stuff and why we get so passionate about it is because, like, for Chris's parents passing away from cancer, his brother, with paranoid schizophrenia, my ex was bipolar, and, it's hereditary. So we watch our kids to make sure that they're not, that they didn't get that passed down to them as well. So it's very like there's a place of passion that this comes from, like the research and like, hey, this is really interesting eating this way in this journey. Our intent isn't to force anyone into it at all. To me, it's like, well, when I say this, you might agree or disagree. It's like politics. We can disagree and still be friends. Because I don't care. Like, you can have your own opinion. It's just like eating. You don't have to do it our way. But what our message is that, like, change something. Like, if you're tired of being tired and it's just like more medicine and it's more issues, change something. We're all made differently and we have to find what works for us. And, Amy had asked, or someone, I don't know who said it, how about alcohol? Yeah, I've cut down a ton of alcohol, but you can't really drink much. And if you do drink, you have to watch because alcohol is pure sugar. So I have a few wines that I can drink that I've done research with, but you can't have 5 glasses of wine. You can have one with dinner. You could do your tequila is the best or cleanest thing to drink while on carnivore. Not best because you're not supposed to drink any, but let's face it, if we do, not vodka because it's potato, and but tequila if you want to drink with soda, or is about your only choice, because everything else is full of sugar or preservatives or additives. So it's why alcohol is not considered carnivore. And that's why I say I'll never be 100% carnivore, but you don't have to be 100%.
I was going to say,
like, look at the results I've gotten. I'm not 100%. I still enjoy a glass of wine with dinner. I've cut back a lot.
Yep.
I have kids and businesses. Let's face it. I'm going to drink sometimes.
But here's the deal is that what people determine, or like when people say that they're carnivore is actually when you are 70% or more of animal-based products. So there's still a certain percentage or degree that isn't animal-based products, where you can still be on carnivore. So it's what your body, how you want to live and how you want your body to respond to certain things is how deep you go down that rabbit hole. And so for us, I'll tell you right now, I probably won't, maybe once I get really, really clean, I probably won't ever be 100% carnivore because I enjoy coffee and I enjoy 95% dark chocolate.
Yeah. So like we have little hacks, like you can buy 98. I like the 98. He likes the 95 cacao. Now our kids tried it and they're like, ew, this is terrible. I'm like, great, don't eat it. It's mine.
It stays in the pantry or it stays in,
a very, very, very little sugar in it. It will not take you out of ketosis. So there's little hacks. And so we have a bunch, Heather had said, this is so very personal for me. I think it was with the bipolar and paranoid schizophrenia. It's personal for me too. And, my son, he probably hates that I talk about him, but he tried to be this whole, I'm going to be a vegetarian or vegan because it's trendy. And he has a mild form of bipolar that was handed down from his dad. It's kind of hereditary. Yeah. And we've talked about this and he knows that we talk about it, but it's one of those things where I worry about him and I really try to encourage him because there's studies that show that they need the fat source in their brain to help with depression or mental health issues. And because we're eating a lean diet or we're eating only vegetables, if you're vegan, it's lacking that fat source and also vitamin D that we get from the sun that doesn't allow our bodies to create, or doesn't allow the sun rays to turn that light into vitamin D, which causes depression. And if we wonder why kids are so depressed right now, I just want you guys to think about that. Like they're not going outside, so they're not getting sun. They're eating lean meat, lean chicken, lots of vegetables because we're trying to cut fat from everywhere. But they need fat because it helps with that depression. They need the sun or the fat in their bodies or the cholesterol in their body to turn the light into vitamin D. And so like I've really tried to stay on my son and now he started to eat meat again because I'm like, hey, you need to eat this. Here's this article. Here's the study. I need you to make sure you're eating some sort of fat source.
Yeah. And right now, I just got to say, trying not to get emotional, but my heart's with Heather right now. Because again, back to, her son broke in 2021. And what I'm imagining is that it was the first onset of paranoid schizophrenia or some type of breakdown. That's why she halved her business, meaning that she's cut her business in half because to save her son, it's trying to put the time and attention into him to help. I will say that I've done a lot of research for my brother, knowing that parts of it is a little bit too far gone. It's out of my power to convince, but it's just our family dynamic. It's not yours. But if I had the ability to really, work with him on it, I would have said, absolutely. Would you be willing to, try this ride out with me and be there to, let's say, cook the meals for him to help him go through that transition, that timeline of, it's not going to be hard, like right at the hard transition. It's going to be phasing in. It's going to be doing complex carbs so that it doesn't go into the body as quickly, sweet potatoes, whatever, instead of all the bread and stuff like that. It would be working through him with that. It would be transitioning him over to the point to where I make sure that his diet would have been very high fat, zero carb, so that there was no outbursts of cravings or frustration, because I know that there's also an issue, and I'm going to say this here with paranoid schizophrenia or bipolar, things like that, where if your body is not optimized or it's at dis-ease, it's when your body is not really there, I think it triggers it more because it's the frustration that builds up, and then it creates that confusion in the brain because of those imbalances. So keeping a very high fat
satisfies your body.
And so the way that I would have loved to do it is for, paranoid schizophrenia or something like that, is to make sure that I've positioned everything in a as close to perfect environment as possible so that I could start that journey past the hard part, which is going to be going into ketosis. From, if you're used to carbs, there's going to be that point, that bridge, which is going to be rough unless you keep a high fat diet to get past that hump and get past that mental breakdown. But I think it can help.
Yes, and Kathy said her ex-husband was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, and her son or her daughter has mild form of bipolar. So does my older son. And over the years, he's been Bakerized. I don't know if you guys know what that is. He actually committed himself, which was great. He was not feeling great, but again, he was using all vegan diet. He wasn't going outside. He had a vitamin D deficiency, and we know that vitamin D causes depression. And so it's one of those things where I think that food, at my core, food affects like everything that we do. Everything from the way we run our business to the health of our children, to the health of our relationship. Food is at the core, or is the core of everything. And then, Carla said, "Oh my gosh, this was totally meant for me to hear. I've never listened to anyone live, but today I just happened to catch my attention. I'm literally in daily pain, bad arthritis, and it's so little cartilage in my knees. Oh my gosh, it repairs. I have a bad knee, Carla, too. I've had knee surgery in this leg. It helps, and I have a bad arm. It just it repairs the body. I used to take peptide injections. The Wolverine, it was known as the Wolverine peptide injections.
They actually banned it.
They banned it in the United States. They were amazing, but I don't even need them anymore because the way how we've adjusted, all of that's gone. But she said cartilage in her knee, and it's an endless list of premenopausal. It's something to look at. Because here's the thing at the end of the day for everybody listening, is that what do you got to lose? Some weight? less on your grocery list? What do you have to lose? There's nothing to lose. Because if you don't like it or it doesn't work for you, right? Because everybody's different, you didn't lose anything. You have nothing to lose. Maybe some pasta.
And I think that's
Like, and everybody tells me, and Corey said, but Libby, Chris, dieting is hard. This is not a diet. Like, that's the first thing I want to tell you. The second you go in with the thought process that this is a diet, you're done, because you're trying to say, oh, well, I can't have that. And what we want, what we can't have. It's just a natural tendency. It's not a diet. It is a way of living.
They call it, WOE is the acronym.
It's a WOE.
Way of eating.
It's a way of eating.
It's not a diet. But yeah, Shelly, by the way, I see here.
Oh yeah. Well, Shelly.
Husband and I would love to try carnivore, but have had a cancer diagnosis, and my doctors have steered me away from bacon, sausage, and processed meats, and really push a plant-based diet. Do you have any research you can share that could help me learn about incorporating carnivore in spite of my diagnosis? There's a lot to unpack there. Mm-hmm. Shelly, I will tell you right now that 99% of doctors will tell you not to go carnivore right now, and the reason is because it depends on the stage that you're at. And I've done research and seen this, is that when you're on a
well, let's just say 99% of doctors won't tell you to go carnivore no matter what. Because
of the way that we've been, I guess, the way our economy is currently set up. The reason why is because, and I said it, I think the last date morning that we had, is because a few different reasons, but one is they only know what they know because they're busy practicing, not busy learning. I'm not saying that they're not learning, but they're learning from other sources that are trying to sell them products. That's number one. But number two is, if you have a good doctor, they're going to tell you certain things because their practice is so ingrained into the day-to-day of our economy. They haven't even fathomed the thought of us living without carbohydrates, meaning that the way of life.
Well, I said, who built the food pyramid, right? I want you guys to tell yourself this, or go research it, because I'm not going to get political, but like, who built the food pyramid? Right? Who wrote the medical books?
Right. But what I'm saying is, like, in terms of standardization in our culture, we have standardized the idea that carbs are supposed to be in every single meal that we have. And the doctors, there are fantastic doctors out there, and I'm not saying that they don't know what they're talking about, but it's because carbohydrates and that idea, that concept of no meat in your diet to help with cancer, it's the only way for them, because they can't fathom a culture where the opposite is true, meaning that carbohydrates don't exist. And the reason why he says, and they're right, is that don't go on red meat and stuff if it's in combination with other things like carbohydrates. And right now, if your body's in shock, if you're doing heavy treatments, it might put your body in a very big shock. If you're not yet there at treatments, then there is the opposite side, which is, if theoretically I were to cut out 100% of carbohydrates, and this is something to ask them as well, is if I were theoretically to cut out 100% of carbohydrates and shift to a pure ketogenic diet, with animal-based products, would my body be able to transition out of and be less dependent on, cancer drugs? And will I be able to sustain it and be able to work through the treatment? If that were true, if I were able to do 100% zero carbohydrates and switch my body over into ketosis, would I then be able to sustain a much healthier life?
I'm going to drop a YouTube video in for you, Shelly, on, it's specifically don't fear fat on carnivore diets, specifically about cancer. So that you can take a look. If I can copy the link to the video. Yes. And I'll drop it in the thread. So this has been a great talk, guys. We probably should wrap up. We've been on for like ever and a day. Didn't mean to go this long on live, but I think it was a great topic, and I think that food affects so much of us have so much in common. Like if you look at Heather and Shelly and Nicole and Kathy, whether it was a spouse, a child suffering from even mental health issues. There's so many right now, but you have to ask yourself, is it the way we're eating?
It's not the absolute, but again, it could change the chances. It could minimize the chances of whatever you've been predefined with, whatever mental barriers, whatever biological barriers that you have. It could reduce the chances of it taking over drastically.
Yeah. So Shelly, I dropped the link in, but it was great to talk to you guys. And if you have questions at all, like we try to go live, we're just here to answer. Like if you're seeing us doing something and you're like, hey man, how do you guys do that? Or I need help with this. That's what we're here for. Like we love it and we thrive on like just sharing what we've done. And if we have never done it, we don't have information about it, we're going to tell you like we don't know.
And thank you, by the way, Juan Tapia. I think that's, he dropped a few things, said look into a few doctors about low carb, keto, carnivore diets.
Oh, there's the doctors. Yes, I'm familiar with them. We follow them as well.
Yeah.
Yes. So take a look at them. Yeah, I'm just reading any comments. Thank you guys. Rose, Heather, Kathy, Juan, Corey, Carla. It was great to talk to you guys this morning, and we're going to go eat breakfast now.
Yes.
See you guys next Saturday.
Bye.